Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. In this program, we have the wonderful opportunity to discuss with successful Hispanic owners who built good businesses, to talk about their story and learn from them their struggles and their triumphs. We hope you find this show entertaining and educational. We are indeed fortunate today to have with us a gentleman who I've known for many years, Mr. José G. Santos, who is the founder of FoodCity Groceries. Mr. Santos, thank you so much for taking your time to share with us your story.
Well, I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start, Mr. Santos, with telling you that I've appreciated you and admired you for many years. When I was a young man at UTEP, I used to go in the afternoons to have coffee with my father, who would meet with you and some other business owners, Mr. Bencomo, Mr. Peña, to have coffee in the afternoons, and I used to cherish those times when I could sit with you and listen. That's when your store, Rancho Market, right, was across the street.
Yes.
And those were wonderful days. And later, when I became, when I was active in some issues locally, we brought Cesar Chavez, and I would go to you, and you would help us bring Mr. Chavez. You would fund his hotel and his meals, and I've always appreciated you for being such a giving person. So let me ask you, with all of that, about your business. Now you're not running the business now. Now your children are running the business.
Yes.
You've passed that on. How many children do you have?
I had 7, and the youngest one died in an accident.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
And 7 children.
Yes.
And how many run the business now?
Well, my oldest son, Stanley, graduated from Notre Dame. He's running the business, head of the business. And then my 2 son-in-laws, also graduates of UTEP, are involved in my grandkids are all graduates also, involved in the business.
So it's a family business.
Yes.
And you decided to pass the business on to your children. Why did you do that?
I had to do it because unfortunately the debt taxes that is sponsored by the Democratic Party is stifling the growth of small and medium-sized businesses and farms, because when we die, the government comes in and takes over the whole business.
Well, you saw that happen. Is that true?
Yes. Unfortunately, with the Bencomo family, which is part of our family, Hector came back wounded from Korea, and the government, his father died. It was a multi-million-dollar business. They took everything, and he had to go and live in a trailer house. He was very sick. He died, and that's very unfortunate, because you work all your life, and because of debt taxes, the government comes in and takes everything.
Wow. I remember Hector Bencomo. He was a good friend.
Very active.
Yeah. In fact, Mr. Hector Bencomo was a good friend of Ruben Salazar. We went one time, because I used to do some dealings with Ruben Salazar, and when he came to town one time, Hector called me. We went and had some coffee and visited with Mr. Salazar. You were also a friend of Ruben Salazar.
Yes. I really admire him, because with all the sacrifices that our people made during the wars, all the wars, and he was a very good advocate of all our sacrifices and all the injustices that have been made against us. He was a target of the neo-Nazi mentality of the sheriff department at that time in the LA County. And then he was killed by the police department.
Did you go to school with him, or?
No, I just knew him slightly.
Now, you were born in El Paso.
Yes.
And
I named one of the projects, when I put the housing projects, I named one of the housing projects in his honor.
You were on the board of Paso Housing Authority.
Yes, I brought in I made the studies, and fortunately, I was good friends with Senator Tower and President Nixon. Gave me $800 million to bring to El Paso for public housing and La Fe Clinic.
Wow.
And
You were on the board then, and that's why they named the projects Ruben Salazar. 'Cause you were on the board.
I
Yeah.
suggested that we name
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Let me ask you about your childhood. You were raised in El Paso and you lived here.
Yes, I live in the south side. We were 10 of us in 2 little rooms.
10.
Yes, my father was an orphan, and he was working the railroad as common worker, and we had hard times. But I started working with my grandfather, and he had a French Mexican bakery,
Really?
and I started working with him when I was 5 years old.
Really? Was that in the south side also?
Yes, so that's why I started learning the business.
Really? In the bakery as a child?
Yeah. We had authentic bakery, French bakery.
A French bakery in the south
Yes.
side. Really? Wow. And your grandfather, was your father born also in El Paso?
No, he was from California.
He was born in California. I remember your father. I remember seeing him walking around a lot.
Yeah.
He used to help you a little bit at the store, I remember. Now, so then you went to high school here. You went to El Paso High? Or?
No, I went to El Paso Tech because I had to work. And so I worked to school in the morning, and then I had a full-time job starting at 1 o'clock. So
Okay.
I had to, I graduated from El Paso Tech when I was 17,
Really? Wow.
but I worked full-time.
And after that, what did you do?
I volunteered to the Navy.
Oh, you were in the Navy.
Yes,
How long did you serve in the Navy?
2 years.
Okay. So you did your military. Then you came back.
Yes.
And what'd you do?
I started working again as a meat cutter and going to school part-time. And fortunately, with the GI Bill, at least I got a year of accounting and a year of economics and a year of government that really helped me later on.
That
in
was
my
the
business.
Korean War GI Bill?
No, after the Second World War.
Okay. And so so you worked and went to school a little bit. And
Yes.
where were you? What stores were you working at?
Safeway, and that's where I learned. I was in charge of all put in charge of all the new stores and remodeling, and that's where I learned the systems. They were the #1 chain at the time in the United States, and so that's where I learned systems
So you were promoted to the
to
supervisor?
do all the new stores and remodeling.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 19.
Really? And why did they put you in
20,
charge?
I was 20 years old.
Really? Why did they put you in charge?
Because I had a lot of experience in logistics and also experience, and since I had worked all my life, I had experience in every department,
Really?
and I had experience in logistics.
So you'd worked grocery all the way through high school, and
I worked every department. And
Mr. Santos, you worked for Safeway since 1948. So what made you decide you wanted to go on your own?
I always had that idea, since my family was always on their own business.
Your grandfather had a bakery called La Reina, and your uncle had a grocery store called Gill & Sons.
My uncle raised his own cattle and had their own. They were the first to put refrigerated equipment in the meat market.
Really? Here in El Paso?
Yes, and we had their own cattle.
What market was that?
It was Gill & Sons. But when the war started, we were the only ones that had a lot of meat because we had our own cattle. But then we all had to go into the service, and the business closed. And so when we came back, everything was lost,
Really?
And so
You closed because all the men had to go to
the
serve?
service, yes.
So nobody was there to manage the store?
The business went.
Really? I'll be.
We had to close the business, yes.
The 44, 45 time.
I was just turning 17 when I
Wow.
volunteered.
So,
But my father signed.
okay. So that was the 1944
Yes.
time frame. And so I understand, Mr. Santos, that El Rancho Markets opened in 1964 on South Stanton Street. How did you start your business? What did you do first?
I tried to get a loan to get going, and I couldn't get a loan. So a Jewish friend of mine, Herman Golden, signed a note for $5,000 for me. And then Mike Deep, a Lebanese businessman,
Yeah.
he's the one that really gave me a break. He said, I'll take you as a minority partner. And he's the one that really helped me get started.
And wow.
And then we were very successful. We opened the first new store on Santos Street. And then we made him a lot of money, and he said, okay, I'm going to sell you my share. And I bought him out. Took me a long time to pay him, but that's how I got started.
Was that Mike Dibbs Sr.?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
No, he helped a lot of people out.
He was a tremendous person.
Yeah.
He was very charitable with poor people.
Yeah.
And our business is also, that's why our business has spent a lot of time helping to get the public housing.
Yeah.
And we support orphanages in Mexico and Africa to this day.
So did you find success right away?
It was, thank God, yes. We were there at the right time because there were no stores in Juarez. And
Okay.
so then I saw the opportunity to start also bringing in clothing and toys and not only groceries. And since I had traveled a lot, to China and New York, I got the experience of what to bring in. And so that I also started mixing in merchandise. And that prepared me to build a bigger store later on when I built FoodCity Big Star. And it was the first superstore in El Paso.
Where was that?
On Paisano, which is still there.
Okay, that's your present store.
And it was the first superstore west of the Mississippi that was fully computerized. We had the first scanners.
Wow. Okay.
And thanks to my son-in-law, Rick Elliott, and Carlos Larry, and my son, that they had the background to set up the systems because it was a new technology.
Yeah.
And that year we lost $1 million because not even our warehouse was prepared for it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very new.
Wow. And
From
so
changing from manual to computers, it was a radical change.
really, wow. So you pioneered that.
Yes.
And so how long was that? Did you stay with the El Rancho when you opened the FoodCity?
Yes, and then later we, it was a small store, and we started expanding. We closed it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember you. Now, at that time, there weren't too many Hispanics in the grocery business. I know that the Silva grocery was there, the Bencomus. Were there other?
Well, we were probably one of the first Mexican American-owned business in the country that had a superstore.
Right.
And I met Mr. Walton by coincidence at a convention, and I mentioned to him that by accident I had combined groceries and non-foods, and he said, "I like the idea. Come and visit me." So he had only small stores,
Yeah.
5 and 10 Franklin stores at that time.
That's what he bought. Yeah.
But I never could go back because I got involved then doing civic work, like the public housing and other government work, and besides my business. So I never had time to go back to talk to him.
So as you started then FoodCity, and closed down, you say you lost $1 million. That's a lot to lose, but you stayed in business. What kinds of other challenges did you face in growing your business?
The biggest challenge is that it's hard for a small business that it's individually owned to grow, unless you're a corporate and you sell stock. And then the banks are kind of reluctant. Fortunately, the Bank of the West was started by John Rogers. They have helped us a lot through good times and bad times, and that has been a great help not only for us but for the whole community. And so that has helped us to stay in business.
So you need to have a good relationship with the bank.
Yes, and fortunately we have a bank like Bank of the West.
So they've been good to you.
Yes.
Wow. And so as you grow into a larger arena now with the superstore, there had to be challenges with that besides all the scanning and all the things. A lot more purchases. You had to. That was a big move.
Yes, we had to train a lot of people for buying, different departments, and fortunately we were able to have good buying offices in New York and Los Angeles, and we had young people that we trained, and we were very successful because we were new. We were the only ones, and there were no superstores in Juarez or stores, and so we were bringing in branded merchandise from New York that we would sell at a discount, and also we were the first to bring in dollar sales, and so we pioneered a lot of new concepts, 99-cent store items.
Wow.
And
So
the first independent chain to bring self-service meat markets. And our forte is high-quality meats because we've been in the meat business all our lives, And the first to bring in, also we have the best French-Mexican bakeries in the area, and probably one of the best French press in the country, because we have brick ovens, and we have a German oven that they cost around $100,000 each.
Wow.
And that specializes in French baking.
So
And that makes it different. Then we have special formulas for flour tortillas, and we're famous for that.
Yeah. And you also prepare food and sell prepared food.
And we have Mexican delis. We were the first to start pioneering that.
Yeah. I
Also
remember that. Yeah.
People coming from all over, from Canada, all over to bar tamales.
Yeah. And you also you make a mean barbacoa. I know that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, did you raise your children in the business as well?
Well, they go, like I said, they go to college first, and then they also work while they're going, they work in the business.
So they were well trained by the time.
And then my oldest daughter has been I helped her get going in another business that she's been in the manufactured housing business also.
Okay. So you come from a line of independent business owners. Your grandfather had a bakery.
Small bakery, yes.
But your father went into the railroad. He was
just a laborer, yes.
He didn't have a
business.
business.
Was an orphan. He had no education, but he taught himself how to read and write English and Spanish. And he was very experienced in just a hard worker.
So your grandfather had the bakery was on your mother's side?
Yes. And then they also had a meat market and a grocery store.
Oh, okay. And what was her family name, your mother's family name?
They were of German descent, but also my grandfather was Carrillo.
Okay. And what was your mother like?
She was blonde. I don't look like her.
And was she?
My brothers are more, they're light, but most of our family were blonde and blue eye.
So was she a strong character? Or did she keep you in line as a young boy, or make you work?
My father too. Well, I was the oldest. I had to work,
Right.
So I worked. That's why I started working when I was 5. But I also helped me learn the business. So I would learn a little bit about the bakery, the produce, the meat, the grocery.
So you grew up in the business.
Yes. So that prepared me.
And then your wife was also from that business. She's a Bencomo, right?
Yes.
And so.
And she'd been very understanding of long hours, hard work, and it has helped me. And we had a large family, so she's been very good in backing me up.
So what's it like growing a business and having a large family?
It's just, it's a good experience. It's a very, you always have something to do.
Well, I remember too at the Rancho grocery there on South Stanton, when people had a need, they'd go to you. You were always helping people. You've always been helping people that come.
Well, because I went through hard times, you know. You don't forget that. I don't like wasting food.
What do you remember about hard times?
That it makes the family stay together, and all the neighbors help each other, you know. And it's a beautiful experience in a way, because it makes people more to learn to live together and be happy.
Yeah, so you grew up in the South Side.
Yes.
With a very impacted community. Yes. And your brothers and sisters, what did they go on to do?
My brother Ramon, he died after he came back, and he suffered after he was in the service, but I'm very proud because he volunteered to serve 2 extra years after the war, Second World War, and he established with the government an agency called GEPO to help the Jewish refugees from the concentration camps that my brother-in-law and him liberated with Patton. Mm-hmm. And he established clinics and relocation centers and educational centers to help the Jewish refugees that had been liberated. And I'm very proud of him for doing that.
Wow, that's your older brother? Or
my younger brother, Ramon.
And other brothers and sisters?
And then I had 2 other brothers were also in the business, yes. Okay. I put them back to work.
They work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember one brother. But that was, so what did you learn building your first grocery store, El Rancho?
Well, like I said, I learned little by little, working in the bakery and the produce and the meat. And like my family had their own cattle, you know, when I was a kid. I used to go and feed the cattle. And so I learned every department. Then working for Safeway also helped me a lot.
So did you have a vision for building a big grocery?
I always been a dreamer, you know, being innovative. When I was overseas, I saw new concepts, you know. The Europeans were way ahead of us, and they had these big stores, the French did. And so I got ideas, you know, and the Chinese also had.
Okay, so
that's why I got ideas of building a superstore.
Okay. At that time, Safeway, did they have superstores?
No, they were just regular stores.
Okay.
And when I built that store next to Safeway, the division manager, Mr. Foster, called me and said, "Joe, you're crazy," and building a store right across from us. And thank God that I was able to really compete with them, because I had a new concept, and they were running a regular store, but I had everything that they didn't have, including, you know, Mexican French bakery and
wow.
And a Mexican deli. Then you have that.
Wow. So, and because that was across from Fox Plaza, your first store. How long was it before then you added the second store?
I think it was months after that.
Really, right away?
Yes.
Wow. And so
it's hard because, you know, it's hard to get capital for an individual owner.
Yeah.
And help also to get help.
So at first the banks weren't helpful.
It was hard to get capital, yes.
Mm. And as you grew, it became easier?
Yes, they became a lot easier, yes. When I first applied for the $5,000 loan, the banker there refused me the loan. He later apologized, and I would be in New York, and I would call him. I need another $250,000 in my bank account. He would put it in, and I would come back and sign the note. That's how much he trusted me.
Wow.
And
so you got your funding from out of town?
No, in town.
Okay.
No, but I would be in New York buying merchandise. I would call him that I needed more money in the bank, and he would put it in here,
Wow.
the local bank.
Wow. Wow. So at that time, $250,000 was a lot of money.
Yes.
Wow. So, you know, grew pretty rapidly then.
Yes.
The Rancho market grew pretty rapidly.
All that experience helped me when I became chairman of the board of the Planning Commission
Mm-hmm.
to get the money after we got the money from President Nixon to implement the program for $800 million.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
To organize a thinking group.
Wow.
To implement the program on construction, you know.
Right.
And it helped a lot of people get better housing, and it helped a lot of new businesses get started, you know,
Well,
locally.
You're
And so they created new businesses in town.
Yeah, that's good. You know, well, you were very committed to serving the community, and I wanna get back into asking you, because I remember you were very involved in giving to the Father Ram and to, you know, Father Thomas down there in the South Side, to their programs, and you know, you became just very involved in local politics. We've been having a wonderful conversation with Mr. Santos. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Santos. I appreciate that. You're very kind. Are you enjoying the interview?
Oh, yes, of course.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Santos, because I remember you started El Rancho Market on South Stanton Street. You were there for many years. I remember your next door neighbor was Mr. Peña, Pencar Sales. And at the other corner down the street, you had Mr. Bencomo, and they had the Rio Doso Market. I remember those. And but you were serving a community that came from Juarez as well. That was your market as well?
Yes, there were no stores in Juarez. So I saw an opportunity to sell more than grocery stores. So I started bringing in, you know, clothing and toys and housewares.
And everything you brought in sold?
Yes.
Well, that was known. People would come across to buy all of those
Yes.
things from El Paso Street to Stanton Street as they'd make their way back home. So you were in a prime location. And why did you decide to open up there on Stanton Street?
It was wide open to open something new with new ideas. And there was a demand for more than just groceries.
Okay. So you competed with the other stores that were there because you had more than groceries.
Yes.
Was that your original idea?
No, as I got in and then I saw the opening and the demand for more goods, so I started bringing them in.
Now, I remember too that you were very involved with the centers that were helping people in the South Side. I know you were very involved with Our Lady's Youth Center with Father Ram, if that's right, and Father Thomas. You got very involved with them and supporting them?
Yes.
And contributing to their efforts and helping them, right?
Yes.
Did you get to know Father Ram?
Oh, yes.
He was a good friend of yours.
Very good, yes.
What do you remember about Father Ram?
He was always very jolly, and he was a very happy person and very positive. And he loved the Mexican people, you know, our people.
Yeah, he was an
and
icon.
The youth.
Yeah, he was an icon in our community, and
Yes.
and then he was followed by Father Thomas.
Yes.
Did you communicate with Father Ram for the years?
No, after he went to Brazil, we both became very busy in our own endeavors, you know. But I always have prayed for him, you know, because I know that he's always doing the very good wherever he goes.
Yeah, and so you were
he's
involved.
a true apostle.
Yeah, you were involved in giving to them, to Our Lady's Youth Center and all of those activities, and helping and grow the South Side. That was. So why did you always have that desire to serve the community?
Because I grew there, and we had very poor housing conditions. I used to sleep in the concrete floor, you know, winter and summer.
When you were young?
And so my dream was public housing. That was one of the goals why I wanted to bring in public housing for the people that didn't have adequate housing.
Mm-hmm. So,
unfortunately, it became a...
So you began to serve in civic endeavors in committees. You remember some of the first committees you served on?
Well, the key committee was when Jackson Williams, the first mayor in El Paso, that was president of UTEP, he was a turning key for us because he saw the veterans coming back when he was president of UTEP, and there were no Hispanics on the boards in El Paso. And I was one of the first that he put into the planning commission, and I didn't know anything about urban planning. So fortunately, I had the economic base to hire one of the top planners in the country, Dr. Rappin at Columbia University, and then Claudio Arenas, a graduate at Boyd High School, a top planner from University of Texas. He also helped me. And then Nestor Valencia, he was my constant advisor. He never charged me. He always was joined my endeavors. And so that's how we developed the idea of making the studies for the South Side. And there was an opposition to make those studies because it was a tinderbox. We had the highest rate of TB in the country, the highest infant mortality in the country.
Yes.
When I was a kid there, I had lived it. And when we got those studies, that's how we won the contracts to get the housing funds from the federal government.
Yeah.
Because after we made the march downtown, the Chicano March, President Nixon realized that something had to be done. So he went ahead and funded the program with about $800 million, not only for public housing, but for La Fe Clinic.
Yeah, by that time you were already on bigger boards. But so you were building a business and you were involved civically.
Yes.
Did that cause any conflict with your business growth?
Well, I had about 7 stores, but then I had to close 4 because I was losing a lot of money because, you get involved in, I had too much going on and I didn't have enough adequate help. So that cost money, to be.
So you grew to 7 stores.
But then I had to close 4 because I started losing money because I couldn't control the 7 stores without also trying to implement the other government programs.
So, but you stayed on boards and committees as well.
Yes.
Though. You just closed the stores.
Yes.
But your business was doing good after that.
Yes, except when we had the price war when the Germans came in.
When was that?
I forgot the year, but they started predatory pricing, selling everything under cost. Mm-hmm. And even Safeway was suffering. All of us were suffering.
What stores were those?
They opened German stores. I forgot their name. But then they eventually went out of business.
They were undercutting the pricing.
Yes. They bought out first, and then they went busted.
Okay. Oh, okay. And but that hurt you.
Yes, it hurt everybody.
How did you survive?
Fortunately, John Rogers and Ed Soto, my friend, his mother adopted me when I was a little kid. I was selling apples out of a little cart, and she said, "I'm adopting you spiritually." So Ed Soto has always seen me like a brother. And Soto came in and helped us. Him and John Rogers were key in helping us get going after that price war.
But that's much
John
later.
Rogers.
Because Ed Soto's younger than I am. He's a younger man.
He's a very smart businessman.
Yes, he is.
And John Rogers, he always was a very close friend of mine, and he helped me tremendously.
So you had a lot of helpers.
Thank God that I've always had good friends. And I also have to mention that Leonard Goodman and Fred Hervey were key in me getting all those programs from Senator Nixon. I mean, from President Nixon. Leonardo Goodman.
Yeah.
He was a tremendous bridge between the power structure and
Yeah, okay.
and us.
They used to call him Nardo, is that?
Leonardo,
Yeah.
and he also helped me get the funding. Him and Dr. Russell V. Lee, head of all he was a personal friend of mine.
Yeah.
He was head of all the medical armed forces during the Second World War.
Yeah.
He helped me get the funding for La Fe Clinic.
Okay. So, yeah, so I remember in the 60s, you know, in the late 60s, when we started doing some work in the South Side, the square mile that your store was in had 10,000 people. And like you say, it still had the highest incidence of TB in the nation and infant mortality and a whole list of other issues. And one of the issues we addressed was that of health. We began to address in those years also youth. There were a lot of youth issues and education. And that's when Our Lady's Youth Center was very involved in organizing youth. Remember Nino Aguilera was very involved.
Oh, Nino was a great help. It helped me also. He was a very close friend of mine. Such a great guy.
Yeah, he was. And I remember him, and out of that grew the idea of starting a clinic for La Fe in a tenement. We started...
Pete Duarte.
Yep.
Pete Duarte. And then the good thing about Pete is that that was a good education for him. And they helped him get the best, to start up the best medical facilities.
Yeah.
In the Southwest.
Yeah. Well, Pete came to town in '68, and but your business by that time was doing very well. Your business, your market was doing well, but you got full force into civic involvement at that time, but you're still building a business. I don't know how you did. How did you do all of that?
Well, the help of I was being devoted. You know, our mainstay in our life is the Virgen de Guadalupe. And since I was a kid, I always prayed to her to help me guide me. And the Holy Spirit is, after everything is done and everybody thought I was a fool, they called me Don Quixote when I was trying to get the public housing.
Yeah.
This guy is crazy.
Well,
and then when we got all the money and got the thing going and got it established, and done, I realized that it was the Holy Spirit guiding me.
But that was at great cost too, because you had to close, as you had shared, some stores. So you ran the stores. I mean, you were the chief executive of your operation, and you didn't have help, did you? You were
at that time. My kids were still going to school.
So you were running all of that.
Yes.
And because of your success, then you became a Hispanic that people knew and could put on boards and they could trust. And so there must have been a lot of demands on you to serve.
Well, when Fred Herbie ran for mayor, he asked me to be his advisor. And he helped me a lot with Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got elected mayor, I knew he was a very busy man. And I said, you need somebody like Nestor Valencia to be your executive director. And right away he said yes.
Yeah, he was the executive assistant, yeah.
And Nestor helped him a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Nestor and I, we've always been a team of getting, I still have the Southside status in my office.
Wow. Nestor and I went to graduate school at UTEP together, and he was already working for the city, and he was assistant city planner at the time. But so here you are building a business, but because the community sees that you're rising and you become visible, you became friends with a power broker. So here you are trying to build a business, but the political side is very intense for you too, to serve on these committees.
Well, Governor Briscoe would call me and he would ask me to be his advisor. And then later on we can touch on this, but then I knew during serving at the board of the Planning Commission that we had a shortage of water. So I presented to the Texas Water Commission the Nahuapa plant, the North American Power Plant, is the biggest engineering project ever conceived, and we can later touch on that.
Yeah.
And it's really needed. I introduced that to the Texas Water Commission during the Vietnam War, and that would open up all the West for food production.
Yeah. So here you have success in building your business, and you have civic success. But there were a lot of Hispanics that weren't having that success. Do you remember?
Yeah.
A lot of, what does that do? Why did not more Hispanics have success like you did?
Because it's as I go back, I remember that I went to AA school, and our school was falling down, and we used to have short on funding, but we had tremendous teachers, and that's what helped us, The school facilities were very poor, and you could see the walls were cracking, the stairway was falling down, but we had tremendous teachers, and that's what really helped us, and thank God. And so I knew that we needed to start with the educational system. Mm-hmm. And when they started busing from the South Side, the Civil Rights Commission, mm-hmm. and the blacks were here, mm-hmm. I opposed that because when I was going to school, I only had one pair of pants. And I felt that money should be spent on building better schools and better and paying better teachers, better salaries to teachers than busing. And so the black community got kind of upset with me.
So you never forgot your roots?
No.
And so you grew stores, and you tell me you grew up to 7 stores.
But we also trained, we started a training program in our stores to train young people going to high school. And a lot of these people have gone into a lot of better jobs as bakers and meat cutters, and or going on to college.
So you
graduated as engineers. Help them go to college.
So you helped a lot of people get their start and train
and especially going to college and mm-hmm. finish and getting their degree. And so it's our duty. It's mm-hmm. As Catholics, we're supposed to help each other.
So, Mr. Santos, what is your biggest success in your business?
Seeing younger people get ahead that didn't have, like I got started, for them to get started also. Yeah. There's 2 or 3 of the people that work for me that they have become millionaires, and that makes me very happy.
Wow. Were you always a reader?
A what?
A reader? Did you always read?
Oh, yes. I encourage young people to read.
Yeah, because I know you have a lot of books. You've always bought books. You always read, and so you were a bright young man. And as you grew with Safeway, you're young, and they promote you, and then you decide to go start your business. Well, you knew how to build a business from the beginning.
Well, I always have told my kids and my people that are co-workers, I call them my colleagues, to research. And when you get out of college, your education starts. You only get a key to open up the door to the real world. And it's constant research. You never give up. And don't be afraid to be innovative.
So you were innovative.
You have to be innovative.
So, Mr. Santos, you have 3 stores now. One there at 5400 Alameda. You have your store on Gateway at 7444 Gateway there at Hunter. And you have your 3200 Alameda Street by Estrella. So you have 3 FoodCity stores. And your children are running the business now.
And my grandkids.
And your grandkids.
My oldest daughter, she has her own business. in manufactured housing.
But you still go to the store every day.
I do because I still do a lot of research for them. And
You like that.
yes. And
And so what is your legacy? What has your legacy been? What is your legacy that you leave this community?
is that I'm very grateful to everything that God has given us, and we have to share that, and we have to help, especially the underprivileged. That's why Pope Francis is my hero also, is to help the poor.
Yeah,
to get going, you know.
You've always done that.
And especially in Africa, in South America, and it's and I really admire the missionaries that we help, you know, in Africa and South America, that they still come to us, and because they sacrifice so much, you know.
So where did that spirit of giving come from? Was your mother that way? Your father?
My father has, since he was an orphan, he's always been like that. My father, I think I get from my father's family.
Yeah. My father really admired you. I remember having coffee with you and my father and some other businessmen, and he really would enjoy the discussions that you would have. And, he appreciated you an awful lot, and I cherish those times when we would have coffee and visit. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from you. But you weren't, at that time, you weren't as involved in civic activities. You were still building your business. And
well, I was involved doing youth work.
Okay.
Kind of low key.
Yeah.
Working in Smelter Town.
Really.
And with Father Costa, the one that built the Cristo Rey monument. He was a good friend of mine.
Really.
Yes.
Wow. So you've helped a lot of youth ministries grow, a lot of youth programs, and your children, they pick that up.
Thank God that I hope also my grandkids follow me in helping. It's that's the legacy I want to leave. That they help the people that need to be helped.
And you always, so how did you balance helping people and serving in the community and building your business? How did you do all of that?
Well, you just, it's a way of life. It's a very rewarding life. It enriches your life. It's I remember when we went to a public housing and this very old lady came and I felt so touched. She kissed my hand, and she was so happy she had a good home, and that's what makes you happy. See, when you see people like that, that you made them happy, that they have a good home to live.
So your business now is still your business is still growing?
No, it's right now it's a struggle because right now we have the major remodeling across the street, and people have a hard time getting into our main store, So we're having tremendous hard times right now for a whole year, until they get through.
Yeah, you're on a major thoroughfare, and they're redoing the thoroughfare, and so access to your...
So that's part of doing business,
Yeah.
And you just have to learn to bear with it. But here again, the Bank of the West, it's so important to have a bank that works with you in good times and hard times, And that's what helped build the community. And I'm very grateful to them because we also have to continue also helping other people.
Did you also helped develop financing. Were you part of any of the groups that started savings and loans or other organizations to help minority business? There were several efforts in that.
No, I never did.
Yeah, because you were so involved in the grocery business. Were you also part of the Grocers Association and all of those associations?
Yes, tri-state.
You're tri-state.
Yes.
Yes. And so what is the best advice that you would give right now somebody that is wanting to make a major step in starting a business?
Is to make sure that they learn accounting at least a year of accounting, and to do research and learn what they're going to get into before they go into the business. But let's have at least a year of accounting, and to learn the business they're going to get into before they get into it.
So,
and not be afraid.
So you're talking about
and pray.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You're talking about a lot of preparation. Well, you were prepared when you started your business. You were prepared.
Well, fortunately, I learned it accidentally by working different departments, you know. But the best training I had was at Safeway. Fortunately, they're one of the best chains in the country, and I was under a lot of pressure. Sometimes I averaged 2 or 4 hours sleep, you know.
Really?
When I was opening new stores, because I had to work open a schedule, you know. But that's good because you have to learn to work under pressure. And that's when I'm more effective, when I'm under pressure. I'm more relieved.
Yeah.
I'm more calm.
Well, that probably fits because you were always very involved.
And the best advice I have to give the young people is don't masticate a problem. Spend your time learning how to resolve it.
There you go. There you go. I appreciate that. Well, Mr. Santos.
And learn and do research and study and work hard.
Yeah. Well, you certainly.
And pray.
You are certainly an example of hard work and the use of prayer, of course, and reliance on your faith. But you also gave hugely to this community. And, this community should be eternally grateful to the kindness that you've given for years.
And also I want to thank Dr. Natalicio because she's our best friend. And I can see it in my grandkids that they have really helped the business because they have prepared, the university has prepared them.
You prepared them well.
And she's doing such a great, tremendous work, you know.
That's good.
And she had never really been recognized.
Wow.
And I want to thank her.
That's very kind of you to say. Well, Mr. Santos, I really thank you for sharing with us your story. It's a marvelous story, and you're a wonderful man. And our community has certainly been graced by your efforts, and your family continues the legacy. Mr. Santos, thank you so much for sharing with us, and we thank the viewers for staying with us and enjoying, we trust, this discussion with José G. Santos, the founder of FoodCity Markets. Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you very much.